Hi, and welcome to Celebration Bar Review. We are counting down the top 10 myths about the bar exam, and this week we're on myth number 6, so we're getting about halfway there. I hope you've enjoyed the series so far. I've gotten lots of great comments from people around the world, and it's a lot of fun to read their take on these different myths. Today is one of my favorite myths. It's kind of an all-encompassing umbrella, and I want to talk about some specifics. But the title of this myth is "Fool Me Once," and most of you know how that phrase ends. Shame on me, fool me twice. Well, you get the idea. But fooling the bar examiners is really what I'm talking about today. And the myth is that somehow you can game the exam, you can beat the exam by doing something that will fool the examiners into giving you a passing score that you might not otherwise deserve. Now, on its face, that's ludicrous, and I think most of us in our rational moments would know that, but there's something about the bar exam that brings out the irrational in some people, and so I have seen over the years people try a number of techniques that they are certain will help them game or beat the test, and it just doesn't work in reality, so I want to at least call your attention to some of those. I want to start with a couple of the ones that are most widespread, most pernicious in my view, and they're really more the result, I think, of some of my colleagues in this industry and their marketing attempts. The one that drives me nuts is the one that says you can learn how to beat the bar in 3 days or 6 days of study. Now, I'm really tempted to say, oh, come on. Anyone who's really thinking about it knows that you cannot possibly learn everything that you're supposed to learn in 3 years of law school in 3 days. I don't care how brilliant the lecturers are. I don't care how clever their materials are. I don't care how many questions a night they say you should do. It's just garbage. It's great marketing, because who wants to spend 3 months studying when someone says, hey, you can do it in 3 days? It's a lot like those guys that say, you don't really need to buy a Rolex. You can buy this one I found off the back of the truck. They're both watches, but they're not really the same. If you're going to take a 3-day or a 6-day course, you're just kidding yourself. You're spending money you don't need to spend, you're doing work you don't need to do, and at the end of the day, it's really just a big add-on waste of time. It doesn't beat the exam, it doesn't do anything close to that, it just makes you crazy for 3 days or 6 days, typically at the end of your studies when you really should be reviewing and tightening down things, instead of saying, here's the whole world. So that's one of the crazy ones that I think for sure. Along the same lines, there are now companies out there that say, oh, we'll have a computer program and it will adapt to your way of studying. Oh, please. There's no such thing. The people that say that haven't built the kind of models, haven't done the kind of testing that would make that possible. The National Conference of Bar Examiners, the people that write the multi-state exam, have been doing this for 25, 30 years. They have literally millions of test results, and they can't build a reliable computer model. How's a guy in his basement going to do that and then put it on the web and sell it to you for $49.99? I mean, you got to be kidding me, folks. There's no way that just answering one question is going to tell the computer enough that it's going to know what next question to give you. And oh, by the way, if you miss torts number 1, you know what it's going to give you? Torts number 2. It's a brilliant system. But the point is, it's not a way to beat the exam. It's a way to beat you out of your money. So I think that if you think that there's some great technological advance that's going to cause you to do great on the exam, you're probably missing the boat. The people that write the test haven't come up with the technology to be able to grade it effectively. I'm pretty sure no one's got the technology yet to beat the test effectively. The third kind of way that I see people trying to beat the exam has to do with the way they write essays. And this is really amazing stuff to me. I am constantly faced with people that write essays in which they underline words, they underline terms of art, they block and print in big letters the key issues or phrases, whatever they think. And somehow, and when I ask them about it, they say, well, I learned that if I underline the important words here, the examiners don't read the essays and they'll just look at what I've underlined and written in big letters. Oh, please, folks. The examiners read the essays, I promise. They really do. And, when they read them, I think they find it offensive when people try to trick them or game them this way. It's really a foolish way to do it. I tell the story of a classmate of mine in law school who had terrible handwriting, but he decided that the way to pass civil procedure was to write total gibberish and then underline and print the word Erie Doctrine about 50 times. Well, it worked. He got a C minus, I think, and passed the class, but it was hardly the way to demonstrate skill and ability, and that professor was such a dork anyway, I don't think he understood what was going on. But the point is that the bar examiners really do care about the quality of the work you do. And so when you just underline words, meaningless, and you just put as many phrases and catchwords and buzzwords as you can, you're really demeaning the process. I think it's condescending to the reader. And in general, I have not seen that it works at all. So it's another way that I think people try to trick the exam when in fact it doesn't really work. In the same way, when you talk about writing, there are those out there that say, I've got a writing style, and you don't need a specific writing course for this state exam or that state exam. You can just buy my generic writing course and I'll make you a great writer in all 50 states. You know, I do 7 states, that's a lot of states, and I'll tell you that each one of them is different. They look for different things, they have a different approach, they need to be treated differently. Sometimes big differences, sometimes subtle ones, but I would never suggest that one writing method, one writing style, one approach would be appropriate in all 50 states. So if you think that the way you learn to write in California is going to help you on the New York exam, or God forbid the way you did the New York exam is going to help you on the Florida exam, you are in for a real shock, because the examiners are local, they are idiosyncratic, and they can tell when you're writing something from another jurisdiction or you're from another jurisdiction. So it's one of the ways in which people, it backfires on them all the time. And my favorite really is the New Yorker who confidently says, you know, this works so well in New York, I can't imagine it won't work in Florida. Yeah, well, go talk to the guys in Tallahassee and come back and see us. Then there's those people who believe that they are going to see the questions in advance. It's another great marketing technique, you know, we've got the questions. No, you don't. Nobody's got the questions. The questions don't get written until 6 months to a year before the exam. They're kept under lock and key and then they're put out. No one's got them unless maybe they stuff them down their pants in Alaska, but the truth is no one's got the questions. The best you can hope to do is to have the style and the format and the feel of the questions, whether it's essay, performance test, or multiple choice. We're licensees of the exam, so we can do that, but we can't tell you in advance what the questions are going to be. We don't know. And anyone that tells you that they do know is either illegal, unethical, dishonest, cheating, or just playing you for a fool. So if you think that you're going to see the questions that you got on your bar exam from your bar review, no, it isn't going to happen. And by the way, if your friends tell you, oh yeah, I got all the questions before the test, you know, it's an urban legend. It just doesn't happen. So don't be even thinking about it. Don't waste your time on it. It's no way are you going to beat the test by getting the questions in advance. Another myth that comes up sometimes, particularly in the multi-state, but any multiple choice, is the idea that somehow there's a pattern that you can put on your bubble sheet and it will cause you to be successful. You've heard of this. It's the Christmas tree pattern. There's some others out there, but the Christmas tree is the one that's most popular. It's a myth as well. It doesn't make any appreciable difference in the scoring. The examiners work very hard to make sure that it's a random circulation of grades and scores and letter choices that are correct. Those who say you can answer all letter A and be successful, that doesn't work either. So again, things that we would know rationally, but irrationally we seem to forget. And then the last of the ways that I find people trying to trick the exam is they try and pick the February test or the July test as though one were easier than the other. My challenge is always this: I'll put 10 essays in front of you, 5 from February and 5 from July exams. You tell me which are which. Or I'll put 5 multi-states in front of you from February and July. Tell me which is which. And of course you can't do it. The exams are not easier or harder in one date versus another. It's literally just a matter, pass rates are a matter of who's taking the exam, not the test itself. So there's no way to beat the test that way. There's no way to beat it in these other things using computer models or sophisticated systems or generic writing or spotting buzzwords or putting down issues or whatever it might be. The truth is, the way you beat the exam is you study, you learn the principles of law, you learn the skills that are being tested, and then you exercise those skills and you demonstrate those skills on the exam. If you do that, you pass the test, amazingly enough. And that's really why we say there's no trick to it, there's no magic. It's just good, solid work put together with good, solid teaching. If you do that, you're going to be just fine. Well, I hope that helps, and interesting myths to be sure. And we'll be back again next week with another in our continuing countdown. Thanks and have a great study week.